Now we discuss how your company and you personally can take advantage of this amazing exponential digital future. First, let's look at what companies can and should do. Companies must get ABLE, A-B-L-E, and this means automated, business model agnostic, lateral thinking and empowering. Let's address each of those in turn. Automation. It's obviously a matter of survival for companies in competitive markets to automate the processes which they can. If you don't, and your competitors do, your cost base becomes uneconomic. There are lots of expensive people doing repetitive jobs which cheaper robotic process automation systems and chatbots could do cheaper, faster and probably better. Now, this may sound a bit brutal, but do we really want humans doing robot work? Remember, until machines can do everything that we can do for money, then there will be plenty of jobs, even if there will be a lot of churn. And crucially, without automation, we can't have abundance. So we need to celebrate automation, not fear it. We need to make heroes of the people who figure out how to automate their own jobs and then give them a new job to automate. The B in ABLE stands for business model. Just as people are going to change jobs, and indeed industries, more and more frequently, so business models are going to change as the way that companies make money evolves. Changing technologies makes new things possible. Customers are going to want new things, and they're going to want to buy things in different ways. Different production and distribution processes will become possible, so companies are going to make money in different ways. If you're an optimist, you can reflect that the COVID pandemic showed us that companies can achieve seemingly impossible transformations in just a few weeks. The L in ABLE stands for lateral thinking. If you're going to innovate, you can't keep doing the same thing you did yesterday. Lateral thinking is an idea introduced by a psychologist called Edward de Bono back in 1967. He offered a range of techniques to get people thinking about old problems in new ways. For instance, if you want to improve one of your company's products or services, ask yourself what its personality is like today. What would it be like to go out to dinner? Which newspaper would it read? What car would it drive, and what car would it like to drive? One of de Bono's techniques was to get members of a team to approach a problem differently, and thus generate a wider range of options by having them wear coloured hats during the course of a meeting, with the colours denoting different mental approaches or styles. You can do this metaphorically, but it's more fun to have real hats of each colour, even if they're only made of paper. A nice example of lateral thinking is the old story of a bus getting stuck under a bridge, and this has actually happened quite a few times, but in the classic telling, the solution came from a young boy who happened to be at the scene. He suggested letting the tyres down. Empower. That's the E in ABLE. Great companies and great leaders used to set the direction, lead the charge, and expect everyone to follow enthusiastically along. And that doesn't work anymore, of course. These days, companies need to tap into the ingenuity of all their people. That means people need to be empowered, to believe they can make a difference, and that their contribution is both worthwhile and appreciated. This isn't rocket science. It's not hard to know what to do, but it's challenging to actually do it. It means communicating openly and honestly, not hiding behind hierarchy or jargon or corporation speak. It means giving people opportunities to show that they can excel, and accepting that they will sometimes make mistakes, and that's how we learn. It means thanking and rewarding and genuinely celebrating successes. So, companies should get ABLE, automated, business model agnostic, lateral minded and empowering. What about us as individuals? As individuals, we must all get real about the future. This means we have to become resilient, excited, agile and lifetime learners, REAL. Resilient. Life throws a lot of challenges at us. Life at a time of great change throws even more challenges. Like when you choose to zig and it turns out you should have zagged. Those challenges also create opportunities, but that's often not obvious for a while. So we have to be resilient, we have to roll with the punches and get back up on our feet quickly when we stumble. The E in real is excited. Nobody does excitement as well as a toddler. My son is in his 20s now, and like any human, he's had all sorts of ups and downs, triumphs and setbacks. But the video that still makes me smile the most is the one of him getting really excited as we played with water from a plain old garden hose when he was just 3 years old. As adults, when we get excited, we are committed, and that's when we get the best results. Phoning it in never gets great results. The A in real is agility. Agility is the ability to adapt to changing conditions, and in a world of accelerating change, that's obviously important. Agility in a business context involves balancing conflicting requirements. You have to be willing to change and to do things differently. Sometimes you have to take the lead in making change happen. And this means you have to be somewhat iconoclastic, sceptical about the existing rules and procedures. But you can't be a complete rebel, routinely denying requests and disobeying orders from people more senior than you. There is, sadly, no silver bullet, no prescription for how to be agile that's simple and universal. I'm afraid that's just the human condition. But there's one piece of advice which does stand out. Cultivate the art of being a really good listener, especially to people who are not like you. And I don't just mean that they're a different gender or race or nationality or social background to you, although those are important, but also if they see the world differently to you, like a mathematician does to a novelist or a CEO to a student. The L in real is learning. And I don't think I really need to explain why you should commit to being a lifelong learner. It's pretty obvious. If everything keeps changing, you need to keep learning new stuff. And also it's fun. The more you know about something, the more interesting it becomes. And also the more you realise you don't know about it, so there's a virtuous spiral. The question is, how can you find the time to be a lifelong learner? And I do have a simple solution for that, but it might horrify you. Watch much, much less TV. Yes, including Netflix. One way to do that is to say that the only time you'll watch TV is when you're exercising. So, now you're all ready to be resilient, excited, agile, lifetime learners. So, we've looked at where we are with AI and digital transformation and how we got here. We've discussed what's coming next. And I gave you some ideas about how to take advantage of this brave new digital world. Let's give all this some historical context. People often say we're in the fourth industrial revolution. I profoundly disagree with that. We're in something much bigger than that. We're in the early stages of the information revolution, humanity's fifth and biggest revolution. The first revolution was the taming of fire about 1 million years ago. This enabled us to ingest energy more efficiently and spend some of that new energy creating bigger and better brains. Then came the cognitive revolution about 70,000 years ago, when we developed complex language and the ability to collaborate on large-scale projects. And collaboration, it turns out, is our superpower, and we became the planet's apex predator. About 12,000 years ago we had the agricultural revolution, which was a terrible thing for individual humans, but a great advance for the species because it enabled specialization and food surpluses, and cities, which are machines for innovation. And that in turn led to the Industrial Revolution, which started in the UK in 1712. And this gave us mastery of the planet, for better or worse. And it hasn't finished yet, of course. These revolutions overlap. What we're now seeing is the early stages of the Information Revolution, which got started around 1960. The Information Revolution will have a bigger impact than any of its predecessors. And the reason why this is the most important time in human history is that within a couple of generations, an amazing future should be within our reach. Hollywood likes to give us dystopian visions of the future, like Blade Runner, The Matrix, The Terminator. On the whole, it seems to prefer Star Wars to Star Trek. But the future I'm describing is much more Star Trek than Star Wars. It is certainly not a dystopia. The opposite of dystopia is utopia, but I don't envisage a utopia either, because there's two big problems with utopia. First, it's ridiculously implausible. We'll never achieve perfection. The universe just isn't configured that way. And second, it would be boring. Nothing would ever change, so you couldn't have any fun. You couldn't learn anything. You couldn't take a risk. I prefer the idea of protopia. A protopia is a world where everything is really good, and bit by bit it just keeps getting better, and that's what I think we should aim for.